Hi everyone, and welcome to Self-Care Sunday. Today is about probably one of the hardest for a lot of people, but most essential forms of self-care there is, and that is the courage to be human, your human self. We live in a culture that treats emotions like it's some sort of technical glitch, and we've been told by our bosses or by colleagues or sometimes by our own families or friends that feelings are embarrassing. Maybe you've even been told in your own life to stop crying in a moment of pain or sharing from the heart. I know I have, and it's painful. It doesn't feel good. It feels dismissive. It feels shaming. Maybe you've been taught that being a professional means just being a statue or constantly stoic. But here's the truth that's undeniable. Every single person has feelings, and to pretend otherwise is not strength. If I'm being brutally honest, it is a lie. And that lie, I feel like, is making us sick. It's making us more stressed, etc. So why is it so hard to speak up, especially for our men or men in the military or our first responders? In those worlds, vulnerability is often confused with fragility or weakness. And I get it. When your job depends on split-second decision-making and tactical stoicism, you learn to stuff it all down. But we forget that stoicism is a tool for a job. It was never meant to be a lifestyle or how we live our relational, everyday lives. Unfortunately, the stigma is real. In 2024, nearly 80% of police officers reported that a significant stigma still surrounds the idea of seeking mental health support. Mental health disorders account for the largest number of hospital bed stays in the U.S. Armed Forces. Men are far less likely to seek help, even often viewing emotional expression kind of as a feminine weakness. But I've seen the same patterns in women. This isn't just about men. And to me, it's very sad. When we tell someone their emotions are embarrassing or we put that on ourselves, we are basically telling them or ourselves to disconnect from our own hearts, our own humanity, what makes us actually human. We might look like we're connected with the world on the outside, cracking jokes or grabbing drinks, but if we cannot be honest about our stress and our worries and our anxiety and our sadness and our grief, does anyone really know us? Or are we just two masked individuals talking to each other? So this isn't just about feeling better, although that's pretty awesome when that happens, but it's also about our biology, biological survival. Stress and ongoing emotions are not just in your head. They are actually in your blood through your hormonal levels like cortisol, stress hormone cortisol. So when we suppress our emotions, our body stays in a high state of alert, fight or flight. Or if it becomes too overwhelming, we will go into a freeze state. Suppressing anger and grief and other emotions is linked to lower T cell activity, making you more susceptible to illness. Studies have found that people who habitually don't show their emotions or have a good way, an outlet for them, have higher levels of cardiovascular disease and hypertension. So unprocessed stress tends to trigger systematic inflammation, which is the root of many autoimmune diseases. So to put it simple, if you don't give your emotions a voice or an expression, your body will eventually scream for you through sickness, pain, and or exhaustion. And we say we want our kids to be resilient. We want them to have emotional intelligence, don't we? As I hear that from people all the time, but most of the times kids don't do what we say, they do what they see us doing. So if they see us stuffing it down, they learn that adulthood is about silencing emotions and suffering because of that. If we want our kids to be whole, We have to show them what a whole human looks like. Someone who can say, you know what, I'm really overwhelmed right now. Or, hey, that really hurt my feelings. Normalizing these conversations is, I believe, the greatest collective care we can provide to ourselves and to those around us. And it breaks cycles. So today our practice is simple. I'm going to invite you to find the courage to stop pretending, even for just a little bit of time. We have to kind of take it in small chunks. We don't have to do it 100% all the time. And remember that being vulnerable doesn't mean you're weak. It means you're brave enough to be seen. It is the bridge to real connection. Because once you admit you're human, you finally give the people who love you permission to be human themselves. So I invite you to start now, just for a little bit today. Try not to mask and just be and acknowledge what's going on, right? Here are 3 simple ways to do this. 1, don't just ask yourself or someone else, how you doing? Think about, like, on a scale of 1 to 10, asking how much energy is it taking to hold everything that's going on today? So that's one thing. Number 2, name the sensation as well as the emotion, but really focus on the sensation. So rather than saying I'm stressed or I'm anxious, notice how it feels in your body and say something like, my chest feels tight, or my shoulders are up to my ears, or my jaws feel really clenched. Connect the emotion back to the physical body. This is called name it to tame it. It comes from Dr. Dan Siegel. When you name a physical sensation, you're going to engage parts of your brain called the insula and the prefrontal cortex to observe what's going on in your limbic system, your middle brain, which is the emotional center of your brain. And that observation and naming creates a biological kind of observer saying, what I notice is in my stomach, rather than like my stomach's in a knot. You're being the person observing it rather than actually being the knot, right? This is a small distance that identifies you separate from the emotion, and it allows the nervous system to start shifting from a state of high alert or a sympathetic nervous system state back to a state of more calm, which is called your parasympathetic nervous state. Also, when we name sensations, we are more likely to stop judging them. If we start focusing on the somatic or the body, we can move our conversation away from weakness and toward biological facts. Okay, the 3rd thing to do is to practice saying one honest thing you've been kind of stuffing down today or this week. For example, I'm really tired of being the strong one. Or I felt really dismissed in that meeting on Tuesday. I think almost all of us have gotten some sort of messaging about not showing emotion, and that's appropriate for certain situations, I guess. But I feel like I'm an advocate for emotions being given more attention and expression in healthy ways. Even in boardrooms and workplaces, we need this everywhere. So I want to thank you for joining today. I hope this is some good food for thought for you, and I hope you can find ways to name your sensations, start to notice your sensations, ask yourself and others questions that really open up the space for people to share how they're really doing, and to find ways to make those statements that say, you know, that was a lot. That really hurt my feelings. I'm feeling overwhelmed right now. Saying these things, naming them, is going to start to create a little distance between your inner experience of them and how you're dealing with them. If things just get caught up in our head and we keep spiraling them over and over and over, it makes it feel more overwhelming, more daunting, less manageable, and that can put a lot of stress and strain on our systems. So I invite you to just play with that this week, and remember to take some slow breaths here and there, now and again. Today, we didn't start with the bell, but I'd like to end with the bell and a few rounds of soft belly breathing. And just thank you so much for joining. So take a moment to pause. And as you do this, notice on that scale of 1 to 10, what you feel like, how you feel like you're doing with all you're holding right now. And then see if you can, as I ring the bell, just notice the sensations in your body that kind of go along with the emotional states you're aware of. Let's take a few moments to feel your breath. I'm noticing that my jaw has a little tension. My shoulders are just a little tight, but not too bad. My breath is moving with ease. My heart rate feels pretty normal. So these are all ways that you can kind of check in with your sensations and see how those connect to or feel associated to emotions that you're having. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. But noticing those things can help you to be the observer of your experience rather than every time you feel your jaw clench, which maybe you're not even conscious of. Usually that's connected to or kind of linked to some sort of mental thought process or emotion. Like jaw clenched means I'm stressed or overwhelmed, or things feel too hard, or I feel like I can't say what I want to say. Like it could be linked to all kinds of different things. But first noticing that there is a jaw clenching, the jaws are clenching, or that there's tightness in the shoulders is a great first or next step to your process in understanding the emotions you have, understanding the physiological things that happen in your body with those emotions. Once we can see that, we can actually start to unlink those things and create less identification with them, which is going to lower our sense of them feeling unmanageable or like they are the only option, right? So if you want to talk with me more about this, let me know. This is based in somatic experiencing, which I'm in my 3rd year of training on, and I would love to chat with you if you're curious about more. So until next Sunday, take good care. Bye.